We began Norwood Hill. The cold weather gnawed at me with each miserable burst of wind, leaving my bare skin red and raw, feeling tight, almost like a burn. But I kept running, assuming the terrain was no more difficult than any other ground Nick and I had covered. We ran on the right shoulder of the road, close to the guardrail as we could. On the other side of the rail was a sheer drop-off, and the wind whipped and nipped at us from the depths below. Up and up we ran, pushing forward on the icy, snow-covered road, slowly leaving more and more of the hill behind us. The cold pierced my clothes, and I felt its chill in my bones. Cars crept past us as we ran on the narrow shoulder. Eventually, as we neared the top, the sun peeked over the road with blinding brilliance, but no warmth. We ran with a goal of 14 miles that day and ended in a stranger's driveway. The temperature dropped as the sun sank behind the distant mountains. We patiently waited for our teammate to pick us up. We crouched lower as the sunset faded into the gray that comes just before nightfall. I ducked my face into my gloved hands to avoid the relentless wind. My body shook violently. Just before the last lingering light vanished, a car pulled into the long driveway where we waited. It stopped next to us, and I expected the driver to ask why we were trespassing. A lady with gray hair rolled down her window and gave us a puzzled look. Before we offered an explanation, she asked, "Do I know you?" She studied our faces. "I know you from somewhere. I just can't place where." "No," I said. "We're actually both from Kansas." She seemed unconvinced. After another moment, she exclaimed, "I'm your next host, Mrs. Oliver. I'm supposed to host you starting tomorrow night." "I knew I'd seen you before. I have your flyer." After a short pause, she said, "Where are you staying tonight?" Shivering, I said, "At a pull-off in our van, in the bed in the back." No. That won't do. That won't do at all. You can stay with my husband and me. You can't stay in this miserable cold. It's 17 degrees out. Please, come inside and get warm." As I warmed up, I reflected on the marvelous providential hand of God. God had brought us to our next host home at the right time. We could have ended our run 1,000 other places and never met Mrs. Oliver that night. She could have come home from work before we got to her driveway or just after our teammate had picked us up. But no, God knew we needed a home that night. We had suffered through many cold nights, but we knew, and God knew, this night was different, and He provided.